September 28th, daylight. The retards have overtaken the city. Somehow, I'm still alive. What's up everyone, hope you guys are all having a great day today. I'm doing pretty well aside from the retards literally right outside my window.
Give Ryan lost touch, bro! That nigga is dumb as fuck!
So that's gonna be a while until all that retardation gets cleaned up, but while we wait, since we're in the apocalypse of retards right now, why don't we take a look at a really shitty review of Resident Evil 4. Now, Resident Evil 4 is a very confusing game to me, to say the least. When I first played it back during the summer of last year, I absolutely despised this game. The controls were even more dated than the remake of 1 with the fixed camera angles, the story was overly cheesy, and most important to me, it wasn't scary, so I dropped the game about 3/4 of the way in. A year later, I started doing this commentary shit. I made fun of people in their Doom Eternal reviews for them not liking the game because it wasn't exactly what they wanted it to be. But during all of that, I realized that I was doing the exact same thing with Resident Evil 4. So about 3 months ago, I decided to try to replay the game and see it for what it is, being a scary themed action game rather than seeing it for what I wanted it to be, which was a sequel to the classic style Resident Evil games that I adore. And god damn it, this game has become one of my favorites in the series. Still not my favorite because again, this game is not exactly what I wanted from a Resident Evil game, but on an objectivity level, this game is probably on par with my favorite game in the series, being RE2. And I would say that this is the Doom Eternal of the Resident Evil series in the way that it sparked a level of retardation in its criticisms that no other game in the series has gotten. And it also turns out that every criticism that I had for this game was pretty much wrong. Yes, the controls are clunky, but they're just as bad as the fixed camera games, which I adore. The story is cheesy, but it's meant to be like that, how it parodies Resident Evil's previous stories. And while it definitely isn't as scary the whole way through when being compared to something like Resident Evil 7, at the very least it makes an attempt in the last quarter to be somewhat of a horror game with the regenerators. And yes, Ashley does suck, but at least her AI isn't fucking brain dead like your companion in RE0, 5, or 6, how they waste your ammo and walk directly into an ambush. At least Ashley just fucking stays behind you or stands still. So before I spend an entire hour jerking off this game, because let's be honest, I probably will, let's just jump into the fucking video.
This is going to be easy for me to talk about. This video is way overdue. Not because this game came out over 15 years ago, but because I have some people that I know close to me who are always telling me how great this game was.
I swear to god, why is every person with the shitty criticism on a game always complete shit at the game that they're failing to criticize? I swear to god, it's like with Doom Eternal with the retarded ass games journalist that shoots the marauder with the chain gun when the tutorial specifically tells you not to do that. Look at this retard, he has sniper ammo and he's shooting the guys back there that are over 30 meters away with a fucking pistol. Hell, those guys back there don't even do anything, they literally only have melee weapons. I get that this was probably his first time playing through the game on this part, but you're supposed to conserve ammo in Resident Evil. Later in the video he says this isn't his first RE game that he's played. He should know this by now. You don't try to use a fucking pistol as a sniper. Jesus Christ. Just think for 2 seconds in your life. I get it that you're retarded and called Sakurai lazy for following orders from his boss, but just use your fucking brain.
How amazing it was to them, and that I need to play the game for myself. Now, I believe that everyone is entitled to their own opinion, and I know that I'm in the minority when I say this, but it has to be said, and it's going to upset a lot of people when I do.
It's not gonna upset anyone. Actually, I'd say it's gonna thrill people to hear what you're about to say, because I get to laugh at your retardation. Like, genuinely, who the fuck is gonna get upset that some random retard on the internet doesn't like a game?
Resident Evil 4 was by far one of the worst games I have ever played in my life.
Well, because you're shit at it. Again, you're trying to snipe people with a fucking pistol. You're not gonna like something that you're bad at. That's how the mind works. I've said it 100 times by now. I don't really like Dark Souls because I'm not too fond of having a chainsaw up my ass. I'd prefer a real dick, thank you very much. So if you don't like a game because you're shit at it, drop it and say that it wasn't your type of game.
So sit down and relax because this is going to be a long one. here's my review of Resident Evil 4 for the PlayStation 4. Now, I have seen some reviews talking about how bad this game is, but as far as I can see, they were just trolling.
Maybe because those reviews are meant to portray the very retards that attempt to criticize it. Like, when you were watching those negative reviews that turned out to be satire, did their points align with any of your points? I mean, judging by this video, they probably were. The reason all the negative reviews are satire is because the only negative points people have brought up were easily debunked and laughed at by literally everyone else.
Not really being serious with their review. So with this review, I'm going to start with the controls. Now, I know that the game was first released back in 2005, which means the controls are of course dated. I've even heard the argument that it's the same control schemes as the previous Resident Evil games, 1, 2, and 3. And that would have been fine if this game also had the fixed camera angles as those games.
The whole reason the older games had the fixed camera angles was because the PS1 couldn't render all those games in true 3D. They were actually originally intended to be in first person, but the PS1 couldn't render that, so they went with the fixed camera angles. It turned out that the fixed camera angles made the games a hell of a lot scarier than it would with the third person of RE4 and so on, so they kept it in Remake and 0 since those games were horror focused. They took it out in the 2 and 3 remakes because those controls were far too dated to appeal to a mass audience. Could you genuinely fucking imagine Resident Evil 4 with fixed camera angles with all of the enemies that come up in this game trying to fucking snipe people with fixed cameras? Are you kidding me? Yes, the controls are clunky. Yes, Resident Evil 5 controls are better, but for its time, it still controlled a hell of a lot better than the fixed camera angles, and it was much easier to get used to.
But being that this is the first 3D Resident Evil game as far as I can tell, it should have done better with the control scheme.
Well, since it's the first 3D Resident Evil game, and honestly the game that made third-person shooters what they are today, there obviously were going to be a lot of bumps in the road. You don't hit your shot the first try. Especially you. That is why third-person shooters have evolved. From this all the way up to the 2 remake, which in my opinion is the best controlling Resident Evil game out there.
And I've no other games that came out around that time that did have better control schemes.
What games? They probably didn't come out before RE4 or were third-person shooters. Uncharted came out in 2007, 2 years after RE4. Gears of War, late 2006, still almost 2 years after RE4. There's maybe an argument for Ratchet and Clank, but I haven't played those games, so I honestly wouldn't know. And even then, controls are a very subjective thing. Some people think Rockstar's games control well. Some people prefer the classic fixed camera angles to the third-person and first-person RE games because they made the game scarier. Actually, if you try the game with the keyboard and mouse, it controls perfectly, like literally like a modern game. It's kind of insane.
What I'm talking about here as a major flaw is the inability to move while you're aiming. Now, of course, I've heard that this is just a technique they decided to go with the development, a decision they made when developing this game to add more tension for the the situation you're in.
It's not there just for tension, it's there so you can think when is a good time to shoot, when is a good time to run away. The enemies move really slowly so you have enough time to think when it's good to move or not. It makes the combat a lot more dire and even more complex.
But it becomes an issue when you're trying to shoot those assholes with the double shot crossbows, or you're trying to move while aiming so that you can not only take down your target, but you can also avoid getting hit yourself.
So wait for the enemies to fire and then shoot them. Again, think.
Leon's movements also feel very stiff. Sometimes when you're trying to navigate around a staircase railing, it seems like Leon is having a seizure trying to get the task done.
A staircase railing? The fuck does he mean, like moving up against a railing on a staircase? Then don't bump the side of the staircase and you won't get stuck.
Let's move on. There are some elements from the story that it just didn't make sense to me. I just didn't understand them.
Because it's not a story-based game. It's supposed to be parodying the previous stories in Resident Evil. Leon is throwing these stupid quips at the villains of the game. Ashley is getting kidnapped for being a dumbass like 5 different times. The story is super self-aware, and honestly, as shitty as it is, it's probably my favorite story in the series since it knows how stupid it is. While with RE7 and 8, those games have a million different plot holes and try to take themselves super seriously.
And it's not because I am an idiot, not because I don't pay attention or anything. It's because the game fails to inform you on these certain plot elements. Now, I've only recently heard about a spin-off game that supposedly takes place before this one, which will explain these plot holes. And you're probably wondering, well, what am I talking about? Well, for starters, how does Leon know who Wesker is? How did he hear the rumor of Ada Wong working for Wesker? And who the hell is Krauser? How does Lewis get around the game without any trouble? I know it's for plot or whatever, but still. Oh, wait. Sure. Now is when something like this happens. Now that makes sense.
My guy, did you play any of the other Resident Evil games? There are so many fucking plot holes in those games, especially 7, because that game takes itself way too seriously in spite of all of its plot holes. 4, on the other hand, doesn't take itself too seriously at all. 4, on the other hand, doesn't take itself seriously at all, so the plot holes are way less egregious. I mean, I'll be fair, the plot holes are definitely a problem, but for one, RE4's story is parodying the other games in the series, and 2, it's not a story-based game at all. That's like yelling at Mario for having plot holes. You can yell at RE7 and 8 for their various plot holes because those games take themselves way too seriously, and one of them is even marketed as a fucking story-based game. God, I can't for the life of me understand why the fuck they did that. Like, I enjoyed Village. I honestly think it balanced horror and fear in that game better than 4 did, but god damn is the story in that game so bad.
Now, what is the deal with the level design of the game? Speaking from a architectural mindset, the fact that you start in a village and then you go into a castle, then you go to an island that has a prison and a lab, and between all of this you have underground levels, you have lava levels, etc. It just seems inconsistent. It kind of feels like Capcom wanted to throw as many elements as they could into this game and didn't really care if it made sense or not.
And they never did that for any of the other Resident Evil games. RE1 has you going into the basement where there's fucking giant sharks. RE2 has you going into the sewers where there's a lab right underneath the city. Village has you going into a fucking factory experimenting on dead people hidden in the back of a Romanian village.
Some of these levels were also really ridiculous, like the level where you ride the minecart through the tunnels.
And the level with the giant fucking sharks in Resident Evil 1 wasn't? What the fuck?
Or even the one where you're on top of the giant bulldozer that Ashley is driving and you're getting chased by random spawning enemies and you're getting chased by these weak ass trucks that gets taken down in like one hit. Now sure, they wanted to build excitement for you. They wanted you to have some energy for these action scenes. But this is supposed to be a survival horror.
And here's the it's not scary criticism. Yes, the game isn't scary. If that's an issue, then drop the fucking game. You are looking at the game for what you want it to be, which is a sequel to one of the more classic style Resident Evil games, when you're missing what it actually is, which is a third-person action game with horror elements. And if you don't like that it's an action game, fine. But that's not an objective criticism.
Not an action game. You can't give Resident Evil 4 a pass for doing this, but then you destroy Resident Evil 6 for doing the same thing.
It's not about them both being action games, it's about how they're presented. 4 at the very least has some genuinely scary enemies like the Regenerators. 5 and 6 don't. 4 starts off with a really tense encounter in the village, while 6 has a street exploding in the first 30 minutes. If your criticism is that 4 is what eventually led to 6, yeah, that's true, but that's more of a fault on the game directors of 6 than RE4 on its own. You blame the developers, not the game.
And by that I mean, you can't crap on Resident Evil 6 for being an action game when Resident Evil 4 is just as much as an action game itself.
No, they're fucking not. Again, look no further than the intros. The intro to 4 is in a village and you just have to shoot a couple people, while the intro to 6 is a fucking street getting blown up.
Now let's talk about Ashley for a bit. Now, I know people will agree with me when I say that she was one of the worst mechanics of the game.
I mean, me from a year ago probably would have agreed, but she's only annoying when you're shit at the game. You can hide her in a dumpster and nobody's gonna fuck with her. You can have her follow you around and she'll never get in your way. You can have her stay behind and stand still while you kill everyone around her. You would have to be genuinely fucking slow to accidentally shoot her, and she doesn't even show up for the entire game. Maybe like a fifth of it if I'm being generous.
Luckily for the players, you don't have to deal with her for the entire game. She's not around for all of it, but she's around for most of it.
I took the time to look up how long she's in the game for. She's in like 4 chapters, a quarter of the game, and it isn't like she's involved in any of the boss fights. And a lot of the time you can hide her. Again, she's only a problem if you're shit at the game.
And when she is with you, it's a pain in the ass to deal with her. You have to find hiding spots for her to keep her alive. You have to make her wait for you in certain areas, which is also risking the possibility of an enemy trying to kidnap her.
If you don't want her to get kidnapped, then keep her following you or throw her in a fucking dumpster.
And sometimes she's just damn lazy. I didn't think climbing down the ladder was too difficult for someone who appears to be in pretty good shape and is always requesting you to catch her when she jumps off of the ladder.
I mean, why are you yelling at Ashley to do that when you probably can't even do that yourself?
I also need to mention the fact that you have to sacrifice your resources to keep her alive.
Yeah, the entire fucking game is an escort mission. You use resources to help the person you're escorting in case they get in trouble. That's kind of what you do. Like, imagine in the first Last of Us game if people complained about you having to shoot the zombies off Ellie, wasting your ammo. Like, that's the entire fucking point. You escort the side character.
Any other survival horror game with a second character tagging along would have had that character developed to allow them to either fend for themselves or even help you out by giving you items that they find. I mean, she doesn't give you anything, she doesn't help you at all. She just sits there scared and frozen, and you have to protect her.
I'm gonna be totally honest, I'd rather have a million Ashleys to take care of than the retarded side companions in 0, 5, and 6. Ashley follows you or stays put. The side companions in 0, 5, and 6 fucking walk directly into the line of fire like they're high, or cower in fear and waste all your ammo. When you're making a side companion, you either make it realistic like RE4 does it, or just not a genuine challenge like how Uncharted does it.
Granted, this game is old and it's clear that they decided to go with this this route as opposed to going with another direction with the game. Now, I also have an issue with the merchant. Originally, my issue with the merchant itself was that he appears everywhere, no matter where you go, no matter how much crap you've gone through or how much destruction you cause, he finds a way to travel all around the map. But I since then dropped that issue because he has to be everywhere for you to have your resources. My issue with the merchant is that he can sell you new weapons, new guns, but he can't sell you any ammo.
Because that would literally break the game. The enemies already drop more than enough ammo, and if you were to sell ammo on top of that, it would literally break the combat flow and there'd be no other reason for you to try any other weapons. You wonder why Village's ammo economy is so shit? Because they let you buy ammo now on top of enemies dropping resources to make ammo, so now there's no other reason to try all these guns, and then you're missing out on all these other gameplay mechanics.
Now, you can make the argument that if he sells you ammo, the game could be too easy.
No, it'll literally break the game. Look no further than Village.
You won't have to find ammo if you can buy it off of him. My argument for that is when you go to buy a first aid spray from the merchant, if you have none in your inventory, you can only buy 2. If you have 1 in your inventory, you can only buy 1. They can do the same thing with ammo. You can only buy a small, limited amount of ammo for those moments when you need it.
No, they can't, because as soon as you run out of ammo, instead of switching weapons, you can just go back to the merchant and restock all your ammo with them.
Because while there is ammo all over the game that you can find, you will have those situations where you meet him and you have no ammo whatsoever.
Well, no shit, when you're using the fucking pistol as a sniper.
My next issue is with some of the enemies that you fight, but more specifically, the bosses that are in the game. You have a giant fish, you have giant trolls, you have this fucking thing, and this fucking thing. Even these fucking things you gotta deal with. And an issue that I had with the game is that I had a lot of trouble with a lot of the different levels in the game.
Shocker.
But not so much with the final boss. I was expecting a challenge from the final boss. I played the game on normal. I had a lot of difficulties trying to get through the game itself, especially the level with the fucking catapults outside the castle, because either I would die or Ashley would die. And I also had an issue with those pussies with the RPGs hiding behind the walls who appear to shoot you and then hide away. Really frustrating. But with the final boss, it was pretty easy. It didn't really take much for me to actually defeat him.
And they don't do that for every single Resident Evil game. RE1 is shoot the dude a few times until they throw down the rocket launcher. RE2's is the same thing. 3's is you have to get the railgun and then push in the batteries. Villages is maybe the only final boss in a Resident Evil game that is found somewhat challenging, but again, this is nothing new to the series.
And another issue I had with the final level itself was when you have to escape the island. The timer is going down during the cutscene, so it did seem a little unfair at first, but then you learn that you don't really need all the time they give you, you can get out a lot quicker. But the end of the game where you're escaping the island on the jet ski was pretty similar to the ending of the first Devil May Cry game. Now, I understand that before this game was released, it actually did take a different direction with development, and that's what gave us the first Devil May Cry, so it makes sense for both games to have a very similar ending. But it also shows that they were kind of lazy with that.
Oh my god, does he not fucking know what fan service is?
Development. One of my biggest issues with one of the levels is when you have the support helicopter come help you out. Not so much that he helps you out, because that was actually a cool part of the game. But in the beginning of that scene, the helicopter is trying to use stealth to knock down this giant tower to kill some of the infected. And the infected notice it and act surprised if they didn't hear a helicopter coming.
It's like this guy doesn't understand the concept of irony.
I mean, a helicopter is a heavy piece of machinery. It makes a lot of noise. You can hear it from a good distance away. So the fact that none of these infected could hear the helicopter right above them, it just seems unbelievable. Like, completely unbelievable. Also, at the end of that scene, when they blow the helicopter out of the sky, they use a standard RPG despite the missile actually locking onto the helicopter.
That's such a fucking nitpick, it's not even funny. Yeah, they used the wrong rocket launcher, bad game, 0 out of 10. Man, and I thought I was a dick when critiquing stories.
And when it crashed, there was no pilot in the cockpit.
Because the engine couldn't render that with the explosion, so they masked it with the explosion in the helicopter.
You can't give me any excuse for that at all. They just didn't put it in the game. So, sorry. So, despite all that, did I enjoy anything from this game? Well, yeah, there was one thing maybe. There's a part of the game where you play as Ashley, and it's a very brief moment. And like I said, I didn't really like Ashley as a game mechanic. But when you play as her, it's a very suspenseful moment because...
But I thought you said it was as action focused as RE6. Now you're saying that there were actual scary moments in it?
You have no weapons to protect yourself. All you can do is get healing items. And her ability to kick off an enemy who grabs her is also very weak. But this is what made that moment so creepy and suspenseful and heart-racing. And they also were able to give you a very unique scenery and atmosphere when you're in this mission as her, and they make it feel really creepy and scary.
Unfortunately, that feeling does tend to go away when you see the suits of armor starting to attack you, which you then learn that the insects have possessed the suits of armor. I mean, seriously, unmanned suits of armor with nobody in it is possessed by a bug.
I mean, what did you want them to be possessed with, your Minecraft girlfriend?
Now, as I said, people are entitled to their own opinion, but you can't disagree when I say that that was really stupid.
Again, what were they gonna do? They're fucking suits of armor walking around. You know they're not gonna introduce Ghost into the series because the plot is already messy enough as it is.
One thing that I also enjoyed besides the Ashley mission was the actual boss fight against Krauser. It was kind of a cool boss fight where he appears and you have to dodge his knife attacks, you have to try to take damage on him. But then it also kind of lost its feeling because that boss fight felt like it was taking too long to get through. I just felt like it was too long of a fight. And then at the end of it, I ended up having no time whatsoever to escape, and I died like 5 times in a row before I could beat it. One other problem that I had with Krauser himself is the first time you meet him, it's a complete quick time event boss fight, which I died the first time because I thought it was a regular cutscene and I put my controller down. So that was disappointing and misleading.
Misleading? At that point in the game, you've been playing it for like 12 to 14 hours. You should have known by then that the game is filled with quick time events.
I also thought it was really stupid when Leon is in that tunnel and he's dodging all the lasers. that was literally taken from the first Resident Evil movie game. And we all know how crappy those movies are. So why would you take inspiration from a piece of garbage?
It's called fan service. While the Resident Evil movies are shit, the scene with the lasers was a genuinely cool looking scene, so they put it in the game as fan service.
And put it into your game, and then you can call this game a masterpiece. What amazes me about this game is the fact that I've seen video recommendations of people who have beaten this game in under 2 hours. It took me almost 19 hours to beat this game.
Oh my god, who the hell cares?
So it's just amazing how people can actually play this and get through it in such a short time. Obviously, I did not enjoy my time with this game. I got to the point where I really wanted to just beat the game so I can take it out of my PlayStation, snap it in half, and be done with it. Unfortunately, my game is a digital copy, not a physical copy.
And snap your PlayStation in half and go buy a PC.
I'm also aware that there is 1 or 2 Ada campaigns, and they're supposed to be really short, and I heard they're actually kind of good. Maybe I'll check them out just so I can say that I've beaten everything this game had to offer, but we'll see. It wouldn't make sense for me to tell you not to buy this game because pretty much anyone who's watching this video...
Did he really just cheese that boss with the rocket launcher? Oh my god, come the fuck on.
...has had the game so many times, played the game so many times. So I'm not going to say that. I think that the only thing I appreciate about this game was the fact that with its initial development, it is what gave us the first Devil May Cry. A game that I've loved and I've played it so many times, and I've said in a previous video that I love Capcom, I love a good amount of their games. Devil May Cry series is one of them. I only recently got into Resident Evil with Resident Evil 7 and then the remakes of 2 and 3 and the remastered of 1. So don't think that I hate the series at all. I am actually a fan of the series now. I just didn't really enjoy this game at all.
Well, that's funny because a lot of your valid criticisms towards this game can be applied to 1, 2, 3, and 7, and you never brought those up, so I don't know.
Now, as I said, we are entitled to our own opinions, so don't be hurtful in the comments.
I won't, man. I'll be hurtful in video form.
Let's not have a heavy, angry debate. Let's just have a discussion about this game. That's my review. That's my review for today. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to hit the like or dislike, because I'm sure you're gonna dislike this video, but that's okay.
You know what, at least he's self-aware. I'll give him that.
And I hope you subscribe so you can watch some more of my content, because I have a lot of stuff out there and I have more stuff to come. I'm at the Olan Tech, and I'll see you guys on the next one. One final point I want to make before I end this video is this. I mean, come on. Someone explain this to me. Explain how this was okay in the game.
Because it's funny. This dude that earlier in the game you made fun of for being short is now 100 feet tall.
I don't know what to say about this. I mean, come on.
And of course he fucking misses the door. That was so shit. His points were on the same level of 21 Kilton's level of dog shit. So many things he said could have been applied to other games in the series, and Jesus Christ, why does he use the pistol as a sniper? I'm fucking done. I'm just blowing my head open. Like and subscribe so I can get to 1K so I can buy a pair of strap-on tits with the money I get from the ad revenue, and fuck off. And now, we have a rather unfortunate turn of events. Reportedly, YouTuber Kim Josh-un has committed suicide in his room. It seems he has died giving his favorite finger off to the world, in his note that read, "Too many retards." Following this, West Korea was mysteriously wiped off the face of the earth. Our hearts go out to the poor family and friends of Kim Josh-un.